Hey, and welcome again to One Another Marriage Podcast. This is Dr. David and Theresa Mabry, and we have this podcast to strengthen marriages so they can have greater impact on the world around them and greater satisfaction in themselves. And that's pretty important. And that's why we're gathered here. That's why. So shout out to all the One Another couples out there and those that may be listening hey, recently someone came to me, Theresa Mabry.
Hi.
Someone came to me recently and said, hey, you know what? There are some singles that like to listen to One Another Marriage Podcast because
Really?
it gives them, it's pretty cool.
Awesome.
So if you're a single listening out there, shout out. But for those that are thinking, and they said that specifically, it was about learning how to have healthy relationships in either dating or as they're kind of searching out a spouse, a lifelong partner
Sure.
kind of thing. And so,
That's great.
Shout out One Another couples, but also shout out to those that want to have a one another relationship, maybe in their dating relationship or in their future married relationship.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah, you hadn't shared that with me
Yeah,
yet.
that's new
Very good.
information.
New information. We always love new
We
information.
need a little sound thing for new information.
know,
Don't we?
like,
It's like don't do it.
I don't know.
Don't sing a song.
No. Oh, man. He's always on my case about, not singing a song. So, I don't know. Or having a little ditty.
Little ditty.
That sends us to another song.
That don't do it.
Welcome to the 80s. So,
What are we talking about today?
hey, today we are we're following up on our Love Step material, and we're taking the next few weeks to unpack the rest of our Love Step: love one another, serve one another, touch one another, edify one another, and have peace with one another. And these are the basis of our One Another marriage ministry, the one another's that come out of the Bible. And we have done love, we have done serve, and today we are talking about touch.
And we're convinced that when couples have a one another relationship, as God has laid it out in the New Testament, particularly those 50 one another's, when you live those out with your significant other, with that most important person in your life, you will have a happier, healthier, long-lasting relationship. And it's a mouthful, but it is a mutually beneficial, reciprocal relationship. Reciprocal, Just picture a circle going round and round.
Right.
When you treat your partner in one way and they treat you in one way, in a way that's positive, and both of you are being positive, it's reciprocal and it's mutually beneficial because both of you are seeking the benefit of the other at all times through the one another's. So we believe this is God's plan. This is kind of what God has laid out. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's what we're unpacking today. Touch one another, and then we still have 2 more to finish out the love step. And the step, of course, is an acronym with the serve, the touch, the edify, the peace.
Today we get steamy.
We're not going to get steamy, but
I was hopeful.
No,
I was hopeful that we would get a little
we,
steamy today. It's not.
The other thing that we've talked about before is that this is also a podcast that you could be listening to with your children near
steamy,
if need to be.
Meaning
so
that
we're not going to be.
It gets really hot in the pool and in the weather.
Oh my! Well, the weather, yes, the weather is getting a little steamy.
This is to keep it G-rated, and we promise if you're listening and your children are in earshot, we will keep it as G-rated as possible. I think you can pick up the concepts of touch one another, and it not have to be
right.
So we are not talking about just sexual intimacy today,
right?
But that is a part of it.
Exactly. Okay, so before we dive in, though, I have the puzzle today.
Yes.
So
and a puzzle.
A puzzle. So
What
once
is your
again,
puzzle,
this is just a great way to just have a little connecting tool with you and your spouse or your partner, and just a puzzle. Remember those questions or things that just kind of rattle around in your brain, and they can be about anything, but you should not have a puzzle that you share about your spouse. Okay, so we don't want to set any arguments in place. So a puzzle also is not designed to be solved or
Mhm.
fixed. It literally is just giving your partner a snapshot into what goes on in your brain,
Mhm.
what you think about, what puzzles you. There you go.
Yeah, and if you find
So-
yourself, before you dive into this puzzle, folks, if you find yourself like lacking that type of communication with your spouse, your partner, like finding opportunity, being just being deliberate, and
Mhm.
it starts. I know it may seem awkward too, right? Because if you're out of habit from sharing things like puzzles and
Right.
having, remember, we say you need a tool and permission to use it.
Yes.
And your tool is just a simple thing like puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
Some people do a high-low.
Right.
Some people like around at the dinner table or whatever, or what's your high of the day, what's your low of the day.
Right.
And some people do what?
Well, too many people just give new information.
Yeah.
So we
Mhm.
we talk about
Business
that.
items.
Yeah. I don't think though it would be too bad, even if you are not in the regular habit of having good communication. I think if you just started and said, "Hey, you know what? Can I share a puzzle with you? Like something that I just think about," and then just share it.
Mm-hmm.
And if the other person knows, like, oh, okay,
Mhm.
like it's just like I think it'll become
Mm-hmm.
more kind of, you can make it become more normal. But I think that would probably be easier to start with than just like hey, let's sit down and have deep
Mhm.
discussion. The other person might be like, oh no,
So much easier.
oh no, what's going on?
Exactly. And this is more for our couples out there that you've been together for a long time and things may get a little stale, or you're out of habit.
Yeah.
You haven't worked that muscle in your
Right.
relationship in a long time. Because in dating relationships, it seems to be a lot easier to get to know one another. I remember that you and I used to play on a regular basis 21 questions. And we like have to come up with 21 questions
Yeah.
for the other. Did we go
Right.
back and forth on that, or
I
did
feel
we
like we did.
had to complete
Yeah.
20? Did we really do 21 questions?
Well, you got to remember, sometimes when we were playing, we were traveling back and forth to school. I mean, it is a 3.5-hour drive.
yeah, that was a long drive.
So it's like,
Yeah.
certainly we could have fit
Could have stared at one another.
21
Well,
questions.
someone had to drive,
in
but
there.
it's like,
Right. So I think we probably accomplished it a few more times, but gosh, hon, that was so long ago.
it was.
I don't remember it. Anyway,
Memories.
hey, Chip Chop here. You
Chip Chop.
are
Oh,
you are distracting me from my puzzle.
I think it's a good
Come on.
question, though. This is good. Okay,
Okay.
I am interested in your puzzle of the day. So
No.
what is your puzzle of the day?
So my puzzle of the day is memojis.
Memojis.
Memojis. I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but anyway, the memoji stickers, that you can use on your phone, the ones that are supposed to look like you.
Oh,
right?
iPhone. The iPhone
The iPhone
memojis. Isn't that a
memojis,
funny
right?
name?
That's part of the puzzle.
Oh, is that part of your puzzle? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Stop. You're raining on my parade right now, mister.
I'm preempting. You know why? Is because we share the
You
same
are
brain.
raining on my parade.
some
Get
things.
out of my brain right now.
Okay, so I will zip it
Get
and
out
I
of my
will
brain
listen
space.
and I will hear your
No,
puzzle.
you can interject. It's
Okay.
fine. I'm just giving you a hard time. But anyway, the memojis. So basically in our family, we have a group family text, right? And so
Yep.
everyone has a memoji except for me, like
Mhm.
everyone. And this past week, we had a family member who had a birthday.
Mhm.
And so at different moments in the day, I think you actually started it. It was like, happy birthday. And then like you put your memoji blowing the little and I still don't know the name of it.
It's a
Party
party
horn.
favor.
Party favor.
horn. Yeah,
Yeah.
party favor horn, and it has the
and
confetti
the,
running
the
around.
confetti runs around, and so this,
That's
and then the next person kind of responded, and then somebody else, and so like all of a sudden, I have held out this whole time, like for
Why?
a while. I don't know. I just didn't want to like give in. You know how sometimes I'm just like, no, you just want to say,
That's it. Hey, please refer to our stress animals to see. That would be the donkey or the mule who digs their heels in.
yeah.
That's
I just want to, no to the man. No, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, you're
So,
not giving in to
Anyway, finally,
iPhone
because
people.
everybody has had these for a while, right? And so finally,
Mhm.
I felt compelled the other day to at least see how to do it. Now I
Mhm.
will let you know,
Yeah.
I did not ask anybody for help. I Googled it. Yes, I did
you?
have to ask Google for help, but I was not going to ask my family, hey,
You did?
come help me do this. And I figured out how to do my memoji on my own.
Good job.
But memoji, I mean, like, who even thought of this? That's puzzling to me.
What if you're saying
when
it
they're
the wrong
so
way?
I don't care, really. I don't. If I'm a late adopter already, doesn't really matter
Okay.
if I say,
Okay.
well, how else are we going to say it? Me-moji
Oh, I bet that's
or Memoji
it. Me.
or
You're
Mamagi. Maybe it's that.
you're
I
gonna
don't
get
even
yourself
know.
in trouble.
What?
I don't
Are
know.
they listening in? They're always listening.
They're always listening.
They're always watching.
Hey, think about it. The vast
So-
majority of people are listening to this podcast on iTunes, which is
Yeah.
an iPhone.
And you know what?
That's an
Yeah.
Apple
But you know what?
Apple
I
iTunes.
bet you there's a lot of other people listening that agree with my puzzle in that who creates something like this and then the name.
Yeah.
Who came up with emoji and then who
Yeah.
comes up with memoji, right?
Yeah.
It's just that it was the whole concept of that like name. Like it just I don't know. I get it that the emojis are emotions
Mm-hmm.
on like the smiley faces, right? And so but like that's just puzzling to me, the creativity, I guess, of that, because my brain does not work like that. I do not work in that creative space.
Mm-hmm.
And so because I was going through and having to do everything, I mean, like everything's on there, right?
Yeah.
You know, the shape of your eyes, whether or not I had eyelashes. I put earrings on myself, but the way my hair is, you can't even see the earrings. So then I'm like, well, what the heck? Why even have the earrings for if you're going to choose the hairstyle that I did? So, you know, that doesn't make sense. But just, I mean, all kinds of stuff. And I think I did pretty decent.
Yeah.
Nobody in the family came back with like, "Oh, Mom, horrible representation of yourself," you know. So it was like, okay.
Yes, but the reality is, those memojis are a caricature or a cartoon caricature
a cartoon.
of who we kind of want to look like. So right, and so not that yours is bad, but I think in general, all of us, we're choosing these memojis to like. Because
Wow.
I've seen some people's memojis, and in fact, people can say that about mine. It's like, in fact,
but yours is pretty spot on. I mean, it's a bald man
mine's easy
with a goatee that has some white in it, and that's pretty much it. And I think, I mean, you could put glasses on yourself, and I did try to find more white in my hair, but there wasn't. It was almost like it's like I have brown hair with white highlight, and I'm like, no.
You
I pretty
have
much
white hair with
I
brown
have white
highlights.
hair with So anyway, we could go on and on and on. My puzzle could take all day, but that even leads into just names in general, emojis.
That's a good puzzle.
Who gets to name all the different colors of crayons, and why do there need to be 20 different versions of yellow? And okay, there's lemon yellow, there's golden yellow, there's like I don't know. Anyway, the box of crayons
that is a good puzzle.
has got and I like the shades, but man, like all the different names.
Roy G. Biv
Lord,
should be as simple as it gets right there. Roy G. Biv, and I know we've just disappointed some of our more artistic family members
people.
that may be listening, but Tim Cook would not be happy with your puzzle.
Who's Tim Cook?
Tim Cook is he's the guy that took over for Steve Jobs at Apple. So Tim Cook is, if you're listening, Tim,
I'm just I'll pick up my phone right now and say something into it. Tim,
do it,
I
because
apologize.
Tim's always listening.
There you go.
That we've established that.
Yeah.
That
so now
Tim
everyone knows
always,
exactly
always
how
listening.
invested I am into things because I have no idea who Tim Cook is. But I do know Steve Jobs, so hey.
Well, you did know.
Well,
Steve
I did.
Jobs.
Yes, he is passed away now.
Yeah,
but
God rest his soul.
But Tim Cook, holy cow! All right, we better get on our topic. Okay.
All right. So that's a good puzzle.
There you go.
I did like your puzzle,
There
and
you
I did
go.
like your, and the names of things, and yeah. Thanks for letting me in on your brain a little bit. Yeah. So that leads to, hey, here's a fun fact connected to puzzles and sharing is when we share at this deeper level communication, like you even sharing about memojis, that actually, believe it or not, it does lead to greater a greater physical relationship, a greater intimacy, which intimacy is in its broadest term, is across the board and not just physical.
Okay.
But when you kind of enjoy connecting with one another and communicating with one another
Right.
just on a basic level of like puzzles, sharing puzzles, and then you're going to want to share at a deeper level in other areas. And we would argue that a physical relationship is kind of in the pecking order is kind of a later kind of developing and a deeper development. And so you develop first just a basic communication that helps you to get to know one another, and you feed that attraction to one another. And then so you become more emotionally open and
Right.
more safe environment.
Right.
And then you need to have that physical contact.
Yes.
But the physical contact, once again, is not all sexual. What we're going to reveal today is what we want to share today is how touch one another has three major parts that are key.
Right.
So hang on through the entire podcast as we talk about each one and unpack each one of these. So three important components to touch and how you can develop and grow each one of those.
Right.
But first, how do we get what's our scripture verse basis, our scriptural basis for touch one another?
Right. So the basis really comes out of Romans, Romans 16:16, and it's actually also in 1 Corinthians 16:20, 2 Corinthians 13:12, and 1 Peter 5:14. But the Romans 16:16 says, "Greet one another with a holy kiss."
Yeah, and it says each one of those verses say the same thing. Now, the greet one another with a holy kiss, that appears those multiple times, and the reason it appears is because the writer of each one of these letters, that was a typical kind of way to sign off their letter. Because in the New Testament, our New Testament books is what we call them.
Right.
Each one are letters that were written from kind of leaders in the church, inspired by the Holy Spirit, wrote these letters, and then this is the way they would sign them off, kind of like kind regards, sincerely, sincerely yours, yours truly, whatever. But they would give final instructions, and some of the final instructions were greet one another with a holy kiss. And the one another, the touch component of that is that the writer is encouraging, and therefore God is encouraging us to have touch or physical contact with one another. And these are just normal relationships. Now, culturally at the time, the kiss is how you greet. And for us, the predominant people that are listening to this podcast are in North America. And although we do have some listeners, a shout out to those that are around the world, whether we have some in Africa and some in Europe that have been listening. And so and in some different cultures around the world outside of North America, greeting with a kiss, you see people kissing on each cheek or something like that. So we think more about that. And so before I lose everyone, I know I'm nerding out a little bit. This is what it comes down to. So when the Bible was written, that was normal to encourage people to greet one another, but they called it a special thing, and that is a holy kiss. Now, a holy kiss is a set aside, a special, the word, the church kind of word would be sanctified, which is set apart. It's a holier, it's a special, it's like, it's precious. And when we think of holy, that's a huge thing, right? That's it. And so in other words, we know that touch can be unholy. It can be negative. It can be hurtful. So in marriage, the key for us with touch one another is that touch in a marriage is holy.
Right.
And holy touch,
set apart touch
can look different in different ways. It can be, and we're going to explain that. These are the three major components as we unpack that and see that going forward, right?
Right. Very good. Thank you for the unpacking.
Pontification.
For pontification, for the, as you say, nerding. So I'll call it the nerd alert.
Nerd alert.
of that. But I do want to highlight the other two verses
Do it.
that we talk about as well in our materials. So that would be Hebrews 13:4a, which means the first part of verse 4. Give honor to marriage and remain faithful to one another in marriage. And then 1 Corinthians 7:5a, do not deprive one another. And that would be talking about in a sexual term.
Yeah, don't deprive the touch within. So it's important that we touch one another. So three ways, that we express touch with one another, and the first one is what?
It is we touch to communicate presence. So communicating presence. So I have appreciation for touch from you that indicates presence, especially we've talked about this before, like when we get together with groups of friends and we've over the years we've had like a large group of friends that we've done camping with on a pretty regular basis for like about 15 years and just different things like that. And when we're in those groups, like we mix and mingle around a lot of times, but sometimes if I'm talking with the ladies or whatever, and you're with the guys, but then all of a sudden, like, we'll kind of mix in and you'll come over and just kind of like, put your hand on my shoulder and you're just indicating like that you're present, that you're present with me. And I appreciate that because I'm like, oh, that's my hubby there. That's my guy. And then I have a way that I indicate presence with you, and that is I touch your ears. So I grab your ears. Now I don't grab them like you're in trouble or whatever, but I will just like give a quick like rub to your ear or something like that, or I'll kiss your ear or something like that. And that's something that I did from a little girl, and I would do that with my dad. I can remember sitting on Dad's lap, and I would reach up behind myself. Like if we're both facing forward, I would reach up behind and I would kind of grab his ear. And then that was kind of something I did with my brother, but I never did it with my mom. So it was like just a guy thing, I think, or whatever. But anyway, it was just a way like that I was showing love to the other person. Yeah. And then when I started dating you and you came along, like, I started doing that like with you, and then I don't do it like with my brother anymore. And my dad's passed away now,
which your brother has shared that he appreciates that you do not touch his ears any longer.
Yes. On the wedding day, he said to you,
he looked at me and he said, "David, I'm glad you're marrying Theresa because now she'll be tugging on your ears instead of mine."
That's true.
So
but then like even with our sons, I do it to Alex and Gabe. I don't do it quite as much now because they are both married and moved on, but I never did it with Taylor. Yeah. So it's just with boys. I don't know. It's just with boys. But anyway, it's just my way to just kind of like show presence, quick presence.
Let's clarify. The boys are men in your life.
The boys are the men.
You don't walk up to perfect strangers and
here, let
say,
me grab your ear.
You got some good ears there, buddy.
No. Yeah, this is specifically my dad, my brother, and then when you and I got together, you, and then my own sons. Yeah. Yes, I do not do this outside of anyone else. No one else, actually. So not a grandpa, not uncles or anything. Like just it was strictly just with those particular men.
You're selective with your ear touching, and so
but I do that to you on a regular basis.
And I think I'm numb to it.
You are, because even sometimes like as we could even be having a discussion face to face, and I'll just kind of reach up and like grab your ear.
Like I'm not aware, but hey, couples out there, don't you find yourself the same way? Like I don't think that's a bad thing, like because touching that touch of presence. Now, if you stopped doing that, I think I would become aware.
Right.
I mean, like, because that would be a withdrawal. I don't know. I stumbled over that real quick.
That would be a withdrawal.
If I withdrew if you withdrew, I would recognize that, and I would be aware, and I'd be like, hey, what's wrong? I wonder why she's distant. I would probably feel
that's true.
Theresa is distant, but now because it happens, the frequency in which it happens. but it's just to show presence.
Well, yeah, that's true. And that, what you just said right there kind of leads into the second one, I feel, for me. And that would be the second area of touch would be we touch to show that we care or comfort.
Yeah.
So we say there's a touch of presence and a touch of comfort. And so I know that there have been some times in our marriage where, just due to different kind of like work schedules or whatever, like one of us may be up a little bit later than the other one. And I can remember I would be maybe downstairs, kids are kind of gone on to bed. You might be going on to bed because of getting up earlier than I was at that moment in time. But you may not come and give me a kiss goodnight. And that was one where I was like, hey, like, you didn't come kiss me goodnight. I knew that you were getting ready for bed and you were headed to bed. And you were like, oh, my bad. I was just here. But that kiss goodnight or that acknowledgement is that kind of care or comfort that kind of a spouse feels with each other, right? And so just like you said, if I stopped showing my presence by grabbing your ear or just rubbing your ear, you would start to notice like, wait, am I pulling away? And if you go too many, and I don't know, this isn't every couple, but I think for us, like if we went too many nights in a row and next thing you know, it's a month has passed or whatever, where we're just not giving a hug or a kiss goodnight to the other person, that would start to kind of be like, wait a minute, like, do they care about me? Because I know for me, it really does show comfort.
Yeah.
When you do that.
Yeah. Yeah. To show, so the distinction between touch for presence is more, although it could be everyday nature for the other, everyday in nature. It's like an everyday touch that can go unnoticed unless it's missing, and then it would go noticed, like, kind of thing. And it's like, I love your example of the camping trip, which happens at
even,
home, where it's just like a holding of the hand,
or
and
even
it's not
like at church or at the like, it's just
So it's not necessarily a comforting, although there may be comfort with it. It's just, but it's a presence. It's like, hey, I'm still here.
I'm still here.
Like I find myself at, like, church is a good example. Like, I'll just put my hand on your leg, or I'll put my arm around you, and it's not like a cuddling kind of thing at the movies, because that would feel like it's going into the care or comforting, like more of a cuddling.
Yeah,
like watching a movie or watching sports or whatever on the couch, where we would you would lean into me and I just have my arm around you, and so it's more of cuddling on the couch, and that's more to show comfort or care.
Right. And I do think that the presence is just, that's strictly what it is it's just, hey, I'm here with you, I'm present, but it's not a lingering type of touch. I feel like if it's a lingering type of touch, we're heading into more of the comfort. So like if it is holding hands together, like you're not just going to like, quickly hold somebody's hand, then just drop it. So like, but if we're out and about, or even if we are, like you said, sitting on the couch, if we're watching something or whatever, like, putting your arm around each other or holding hands or resting your hand, like that also shows that comfort and care.
And it could show that there could be some overlap sometimes with this, because cuddling on the couch can become a care or comfort thing, or it can just be, hey, I'm present with you. But I think I think of a good example for comfort or care are those, like the word you use, lingering, the lingering hugs, or like coming home, and even like comfort or care. Great example here, I believe, is that, like, if you've had a rough day, you come home, and I recognize that, or you've shared as much, and it's stopping and giving a hug and showing comfort or care in the midst of kind of circumstantial touch, right? It's like, this touch is appropriate right now, which is to show comfort or care. So the lingering hug.
Yes. Lingering kiss.
The lingering kiss. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So just a little bit more than otherwise, like let's go with the example. Like, you come home, you've had a normal day, and it's just peck real quick, a real quick kiss of, hey, you're home, welcome home,
Mm-hmm.
boom. That's a presence.
Mm-hmm.
That's not necessarily care or comfort
Right.
in the moment, but it's that's a holy kiss, truly, and it's showing presence.
Mm-hmm.
So number one, touch one another through presence, showing presence, and number two, show
comfort.
show comfort or
Mm-hmm.
care through your touch. And then there's a third way,
Mm-hmm.
and the third way to touch one another in this way is to show intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
And we touch to express intimacy. This would be much more of a sexual touching, and like we said, we're not going to go into this. That's probably a different podcast altogether. But we do believe that touch that shows presence, touch that shows comfort and care, leads to a more healthy touch that shows expresses sexual intimacy with one another. One
Yes.
builds upon another.
Sure.
So the idea,
Or they should.
They should. That's
They
right.
should.
Which we'll dive into
Doesn't
that
mean
here
that's always happening.
in a few
but
minutes. Because in a few minutes, hang with us. We're going to discuss before the end. Let's touch base. Get it? On kind of, there's some negative sides to this too. But so showing expressing sexual intimacy with one another is a way that we could touch and should be part of a marriage. And we would point to that verse out of 1 Corinthians again. Can you read that?
Hold on, let me get
again?
back to it again.
And what the point here, then Paul the Apostle is the writer of this, and he's making a point that in a healthy marriage, you're going to be intentional about making sure that you have a healthy sexual relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, that's going to be a problem. So go ahead and read it once again.
Yes, 1 Corinthians 7:5, the first part of verse 5, do not deprive one another, and it's talking in a sexual manner.
Yeah, and so it goes on to say, it talks about actually an intentional decision to, there is a time in a marriage that could be that you are intentionally deciding, say, hey, we're going to push the pause button on this part of our relationship for whatever reason, and he used the example, devote yourselves to prayer.
Mm-hmm.
But he says, don't do it long. He said, otherwise the devil will get a foothold.
Right.
And so the idea that depriving one another in a healthy relationship, in a healthy marriage, if you were to deprive one another in that area of your relationship, in that area of touch, then it could cause a real problem for one or both individuals where, as Paul says, the devil can get a foothold. So work hard at having a healthy sexual relationship. And the big part of this would be for communication,
right,
of being able to share. And we would once again go back to, it's important to have a tool and permission to use it. The tool here would be to say what you want more or less of in your relationship and how that would make you feel.
Mm-hmm.
Apply that I wish I want exercise that we've taught before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically just to repeat, it's basically being able to say, once again, the statement, I wish for more of this, blah, 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 or I wish for less of this, blah, blah, blah. And if that were to happen, that would make me feel this way. And then your partner would repeat back. So you're seeking to understand what your partner's saying.
Short, sweet statements.
And the idea here is that you apply that to your physical relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you could do this with any of those three spheres of touch.
Right.
You could say, I really like it when you tug on my ear. And I don't mind you doing that. And it makes me feel like you're present.
Mm-hmm.
Or you may say, hey, I like it when you hold my hand during church.
Right.
Or comfort. It really does help when I've shared that I have a rough day. I'd rather you not solve. It's not always helpful that if you try to solve it, but just if you give me a big hug, that would help. That would make me feel comforted or cared for. And then even in the bedroom, having specific requests for that sphere of your physical relationship.
Right. Because the communication, like you said, it's so important to touch base on that and to communicate well through all areas of that, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the challenge is even in your intimate relationship, having that open communication being able to discuss these things with each other. But as you alluded to earlier, there are some negatives.
There are some negatives which we're going to cover here, just so
Mhm.
you can look forward and hang with us on this, is that we want to talk about when these are neglected, when the three spheres are neglected.
Right.
And then before we wrap up today, hon, let's talk to folks about the enemies of the three spheres.
Yeah.
So there's sometimes when they're neglected, we've already dealt with the positive. We really love the positive. And we'll end on a positive. But before we do end on the positive, share with the peeps out there about what happens, what's it look like when they're neglected, and then I'll share about the enemies.
Right. So if you have the three spheres that are neglected, so if the first sphere that we talked about was presence, if it's neglected, then the opposite of presence would be absence. And so like you were sharing earlier, like if I just completely stop, tugging on your ear, there's an absence of that, of you feeling that I'm present with you.
And by the way, this isn't so important. It's kind of like a love language thing where someone says, well, I show them love all the time.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, but I don't hear love from you because you're sharing it in a way that I don't quite hear.
Right.
I don't understand that way that you're saying it. And so you could say, well, I am present. And it's like, but I don't feel your presence.
I don't feel your presence, right.
That's about being attuned to the physical, that presence language.
Right. Yeah, because even like we didn't say, but I mean, it could be you're walking past each other and it's just like you smack each other on the bottom or something. I mean, it's like a quick type of touch. It's just a signal. The presence touch is a signal. So a neglect of that would be the absence of that present touch. The second type of touch that we talked about was comfort, right? And so the neglect one of that would be ambivalence. And then finally the touch of intimacy, the neglect of that would be a deprivation. So, and just, once again, going back to the scripture that says, do not deprive one another, right? And so, yeah.
And during times of ambivalence, when it's neglected, oftentimes we see couples that it's not like this intentional, but it's more of we find that couples will have touch that is ambivalent to our comfort and care when they're on rocky ground. It's a tough time. The things are going, as we've said before, sideways, where it's just a rough time. You don't feel like you're on the same page.
Right.
Or your feelings have been hurt.
So you pull back. And
that's right. There are forgiveness issues.
Yep.
And so it's hard to show comfort and care when you don't feel like you've been cared or comforted for.
Exactly.
With. And so that's that mutually beneficial reciprocal relationship. So pushing through challenging times that allow forgiveness to reign, so that you can have, so touch is not so ambivalent, and then deprivation that would go to a lot of times we see couples, it's miscommunication about their expectations in the bedroom, and whether it's frequency, timing, what happens, and so it's saying, hey, let's not neglect it.
Right.
Let's not neglect it in conversation first. Then the behaviors and actions of that sphere of touch will be fulfilled because you've talked about it. Right.
That's a good point. And can it also be that these three spheres of neglect come in just due to the life? Just, I think of like people who are, I'm just so busy. Or, the kids just demand so much, or my work, my schedule, just all this stuff. And we begin to prioritize so many other things in front of our marriage, our relationship with others. And the next thing you know, you're not showing any touch at all. There is no touch of presence. There's no touch of comfort. There's no touch of intimacy, because you have no capacity anymore to do it, right? And so, and it doesn't even mean that you are upset with your spouse or mad at them or just whatever, but you've allowed for life and other things to take priority and to get in the way.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're, it's neglect. So when you neglect your relationship, these three turn into an absence, an ambivalence, and a deprivation.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun right now and can we just challenge people right now? If you're listening with your partner, then push pause right now. Well, let me give the instructions, and then you push pause, and then come back to us.
Do it right now.
Come back to us for the last 5 minutes of the podcast. But for this time right now, push pause. Will you turn to one another? And if you're not with your partner, will you just determine that as soon as you're done with this podcast and when you have the earliest opportunity that you do this assignment right here, will you turn to them and walk through each one of the spheres? And can you share with your partner what would mean not to be neglected or what would be fulfilling to you in each of these areas? Just remember, a tool and permission. You have the tool now, which is go through each one: presence, comfort or care, and sexual intimacy. What would you want more or less of in those three spheres, and how would that make you feel? So go through each one, 1, 2, 3, and then when you hear your partner share that, say back to them,
right,
this is what I hear. And it may seem silly to repeat, but repeat back. Did I understand you correctly? You would really like me just to pat you on the bottom as I walk through the kitchen kind of thing, or something like that. So go ahead. So you could pause right now, talk about that, and come back. Or do it later if you're not with your partner right now.
Right.
So yeah. Okay. So before we close up shop, I wanted to
we're going to hit the enemies.
And the point being here is that so welcome back if you did push pause. But if you neglect, you framed it really well previously. When you neglect them so much, these three spheres so far and so much, you step into an enemy territory. And when the touch becomes an enemy, there's really been hurt and pain that's happened.
Right.
There's been woundedness that's happened. And woundedness could happen from your partner or from a previous hurt and pain from your past, either family of origin or your past history. And we hope and pray that you are finding healing for this if it's really deep and dark and hurtful that you've experienced.
Right.
But it doesn't have to be that. It can be just that, you know what, your present relationship is so challenging. You're in such a dark place that these things happen. So the three enemies, the enemies of the three spheres are this. It's the first enemy is when casual touch is a threat.
Right.
When there's so much hurt and pain from past or present woundedness that even casual touch,
right, even a hand on the shoulder,
right. It feels like a threat, like it's ouchy, more than ouchy. It's pretty painful. And then comfort, when someone tries to comfort you, the enemy of that sphere is when comfort touch is cold,
right,
and it's like that rigid, cold expression of supposed comfort, and it's cold. And then the third area is intimacy happens through intimidation.
Right.
The enemy of true intimacy is when it's more of a threat or forced or begrudgingly that behavior happens. So intimacy through intimidation. We really hope that things don't get to this point, but we recognize that some of our couples out there, we know you're dealing with some really challenging experiences and times. And what we ask is that if you find yourself dealing with the enemies of the three spheres, find help.
Seek help.
Find a marriage therapy, counseling, or a marriage coach. Theresa and I offer this, and we would open up our doors, reach out to us, and if we could help you, we would love to do so. And you can find us through our website at oneanothermarriage.org. We would be glad to consult with you and work with you, even if you're wherever you live. We meet with folks via Zoom all the time, and so we would love to be able to help, or just find someone local to you or someone that you could trust to walk through these things.
Right.
But the biggest help, though, hon, and maybe you can bring us back to that positive side, and that is just a reminder of working regularly on the three spheres in a healthy way through communication, right?
Absolutely. And so that is the challenge that we have for you, is to make sure that you're communicating well with each other about these three areas. And one of the ways to do that would just to be, jot down what are maybe some three specific ways that your partner's touch shows you love.
Yeah.
And they could be all within the touch of presence. They could be all within the touch of comfort, or all within the touch of intimacy, or one in each. So, but yeah, take some time to share that with each other today.
Yeah. Hey, we really appreciate you joining us today. And we would, if you found value in what we covered today, we'd love for you to rate and review and share whatever platform you're watching and whatever mode they have,
listening.
Whether you're listening on. And so if you rate, review, follow, share, do all those things that are so helpful, and the algorithms love it. And once
so
again,
do we.
so do we. And once again, every time you share, every time you subscribe, every time you rate and review, you are helping reach more couples like yourselves.
Right.
You are helping other people like yourselves to be able. So do that, please. And it's not about making David and Theresa famous. It's about helping as many couples as possible, strengthening couples so they can have greater satisfaction and impact on the world around them. So
Hey,
next week.
Yeah, so come back next week and join us as we step into the E for edify. So we will be talking about how to edify or encourage one another. And we hope, if you are just joining us and you haven't heard some of the others, go back and listen to the love one another, serve one another. Today is touch one another. And then we will move on to edify one another. Have a great rest of your day or evening or week, however you're listening to us.
Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.
Bye, folks.